Jake Martinez sat cross-legged on the cold ground, watching the flames dance in front of him. The fire crackled and popped as it ate the dry wood he had gathered earlier. In his hands he held his grandfather's old hunting spear. The metal tip was dark with age, but it still held sharp edges that could cut through anything. He pushed the spear through a piece of meat and held it over the fire. The meat sizzled and dripped fat into the flames below. Jake had killed the animal that morning. It looked like a cross between a deer and a large rabbit, with purple fur and 6 legs. The colonists called them hop deer because of the way they moved in long jumps across the rocky ground. 3 years had passed since the transport ship Meridian crashed on this planet. Jake still remembered that terrible day when the engines failed, and they came down hard in the middle of nowhere. 200 people died in the crash. The rest of them, 847 survivors, had been trying to stay alive ever since. The planet had no name in the star charts. The science team called it Kepler 442b, but most people just called it rock. It was a harsh world with 2 suns that made the days long and hot. The nights were freezing cold, and strange sounds came from the dark forest that covered most of the land. Jake turned the spear slowly, cooking the meat evenly. He had learned to hunt from his grandfather back on Earth. The old man had taught him to use simple tools and to live off the land. Jake never thought those lessons would save his life. One day, the colony of New Haven sat in a valley about a mile from where Jake was camping. He often came out here alone to think and to hunt. The colony was crowded and noisy, full of people who were scared and angry about being stuck on this world. Jake found peace in the quiet of the wilderness. He pulled the meat off the spear and bit into it. The taste was gamey but not bad. It reminded him of wild turkey from back home. As he ate, he watched the stars appear in the darkening sky. 2 of the 3 moons were visible tonight, casting silver light across the landscape. His communication device buzzed on his belt. Jake almost ignored it. The device was old and barely worked anymore. Most of the colony's technology was failing after 3 years without proper maintenance. But something made him pick it up and turn it on. Static filled the air. Then he heard voices speaking in a language he did not recognize. The device had a translation program that could handle most known alien languages. Jake waited as the computer tried to make sense of the sounds. Suddenly, the static cleared. A cold, mechanical voice spoke in perfect English through the device. Sector 779 has been surveyed. The human population has reached optimal harvesting size. Prepare the collection vessels. Jake's blood turned to ice. He almost dropped the device. Another voice answered. Confirmed. The specimens have been observed for the required period. They have adapted well to the environment and appear healthy. What is our timeline for the harvest? 3 local days. The hunting ships will arrive at dawn on the 3rd day. The humans are to be processed for the main feast. The Kethver High Council has declared that humans are now on the menu. Jake sat perfectly still, afraid to breathe. The device crackled with more alien voices discussing locations, numbers, and collection methods. They talked about humans the way farmers talked about livestock. Are the subjects aware of our presence? Asked a third voice. Negative, they remain completely unaware. The observation posts have maintained full stealth protocols. The humans believe they are alone on this world. Jake's mind raced. Aliens. They had been watching the colony for who knows how long. The survivors thought they were alone on this planet, struggling to survive in the wilderness. But they were wrong. They were being watched, studied, and now they were about to be hunted. What about their technology level? The first voice asked, primitive. They have regressed to basic tool use and simple weapons. Their advanced technology has mostly failed. They pose no threat to our operations. Excellent. The High Council will be pleased. Fresh human meat is considered a delicacy throughout the Empire. This harvest will bring great honor to our clan. The voices faded back into static. Jake turned off the device with shaking hands. He stared at the fire, trying to process what he had just heard. Aliens called the Kethver had been watching them. They saw humans as food. And they were coming to collect the colony in 3 days. Jake stood up and kicked dirt over the fire. He had to get back to New Haven and warn everyone. But who would believe him? The story sounded crazy even to himself. Aliens watching them. From hidden bases, planning to harvest them like cattle, he gathered his gear and started running toward the colony. The night air was cold against his face and his breath came out in white puffs. The path was rough and rocky, but Jake knew it. Well, he had walked it hundreds of times over the past 3 years. As he ran, Jake thought about what the aliens had said. They called humans primitive. They thought the colonists were helpless and weak. The HFY had no idea what they were dealing with. Humans might not have advanced technology anymore, but they had something else. They had the will to survive. Jake reached the edge of New Haven as the first moon set behind the mountains. The colony was quiet except for the guards walking their rounds. Most people were asleep in their makeshift shelters. The buildings were simple structures made from salvaged ship parts and local materials. He went straight to the command center, a large building in the center of the colony. Captain Lisa Rodriguez would be there, along with Dr. Ben Carter and the other leaders. They had to hear about this threat. Jake burst through the door, startling the night duty officer. "I need to see Captain Rodriguez right away. It's urgent." The officer looked at Jake's wild appearance and dirty clothes. "She's asleep, Martinez. Can't it wait until morning?" "No, it can't wait. Wake her up. Wake all of them up. We're in danger." "Something." And Jake's voice made the officer move. Within minutes, the colony's leaders were gathering in the command center. Captain Rodriguez looked tired and annoyed, but she listened as Jake told his story. "Aliens?" Dr. Carter asked when Jake finished. "Are you sure the translation was accurate?" "The device was working fine. I heard every word. They called themselves the HFY. They said humans are on the menu. They're coming for us in 3 days." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at Jake, trying to decide if he was telling the truth or if the isolation had finally driven him crazy. Captain Rodriguez spoke first. "If this is true, we need to act fast." "How many people know about this?" "Just us," Jake said. "I came straight here." "Good. We can't let this information spread until we have a plan. If the colony panics, people will scatter into the wilderness and get picked off one by one." Dr. Carter was already working on his computer. "I'm checking our sensor records for any signs of alien activity. If they've been watching us, there might be traces we missed." Jake looked around the room at the faces of the colony's leaders. These were good people who had kept everyone alive for 3 years, but they were scientists and explorers, not soldiers. They had no idea how to fight a war against alien hunters. "What do we do?" asked Sam Walsh, the colony's chief engineer. "Captain." Rodriguez stood up straight, her command training taking over. "We survive. We've made it this far against impossible odds. We're not going to let some aliens turn us into their dinner." Jake gripped his grandfather's spear tighter. The old man had always said that humans were the greatest survivors in the universe. Now they were about to prove it. The emergency alarm woke everyone in New Haven at dawn. Captain Lisa Rodriguez had called all 847 colonists to the main square. People came out of their shelters looking confused and worried. Children held on to their parents while adults whispered questions to each other. Jake stood next to the captain as she prepared to address the crowd. He could see the fear in people's faces when they looked at him. Word had spread quickly that Jake had brought bad news from the wilderness. Some people thought he had gone crazy from spending too much time alone. "Listen carefully," Captain Rodriguez said in a loud, clear voice. "We have received information about a serious threat to our colony. We are not alone on this planet. There are aliens here, and they mean us harm." The crowd erupted in shocked voices. Some people laughed, thinking it was a joke. Others looked scared and started asking questions all at once. A few people shook their heads and walked away, not believing what they heard. "Quiet!" the captain shouted. "This is not a joke. We have 3 days to prepare for an attack. Everyone must follow orders without question. Your life depends on it." Dr. Ben Carter stepped forward with his computer tablet. I've been analyzing our sensor data from the past 3 years. There are energy signatures that we missed before. Small, consistent readings that could be cloaking devices or observation posts. Jake watched as the crowd slowly began to understand. The laughter died away, replaced by worried murmurs. Parents pulled their children closer. The elderly colonists looked at each other with knowing expressions. They had lived through wars before and recognized the signs of coming danger. "What do we do?" asked Maria Santos, a farmer who had been one of the first to volunteer for the colony mission. "We prepare," Captain Rodriguez said. "Sam Walsh will coordinate our defensive measures. Danny Brooks will organize security teams. Everyone else will be assigned to support roles." Sam Walsh was a short, thick man with grease-stained hands. He had kept the colony's basic machinery running for 3 years with spare parts and clever repairs. Now he faced an impossible job. "We don't have weapons," he said. "Our equipment is mostly broken. How can we fight aliens with advanced technology?" "We use what we have," Jake said. "We use our brains and our hands. We use everything this planet can give us." Danny Brooks nodded in agreement. He was a former Army sergeant who had joined the colony mission after retiring from the military. His gray hair and steady eyes made people trust him. "Jake is right. We have advantages they don't know about. We know this terrain. We know how to survive here. And we know how to work together." The crowd began to break up as people were assigned to different groups. Some went with Sam to build defensive barriers around the colony. Others followed Danny to learn basic fighting techniques. The doctors and nurses prepared the medical center for wounded people. Jake found himself leading a group of hunters and scouts. These were the people who had learned to track and kill the local animals for food. They included Nicole Adams, a park ranger from Earth who could follow tracks that others couldn't see. There was also Pete Johnson, a construction worker who knew how to use explosives safely. "We need to find their observation posts," Jake told his group. "If they've been watching us, they have to be close enough to see the colony clearly." Nicole studied a map of the surrounding area. The best viewing positions would be on the high ridges to the north and east. "If I were spying on us, that's where I would hide." They spent the morning gathering supplies and planning their search. Jake made sure everyone had a communication device and emergency supplies. He also gave each person a simple weapon, a knife, a spear, or a crossbow made from salvaged materials. As they prepared to leave, Amy Foster approached Jake. She was one of the colony's best electronics experts, a young woman with bright red hair and quick hands. "Take this," she said, handing him a small device. "It's a scanner I built from spare parts. It might help you detect their technology." Jake clipped the scanner to his belt next to his grandfather's spear. The old weapon looked strange next to the modern device, but Jake felt comfortable carrying both. His grandfather had always said that a good hunter uses every tool available. The search team left the colony and headed into the hills. The terrain was rough and covered with loose rocks that made walking difficult. Strange plants grew between the rocks, some with thorns that could cut through thick clothing. They had been walking for 2 hours when Amy's scanner started beeping. Jake pulled it out and saw red lights flashing on the small screen. Something was hidden in the rocks ahead of them. "Everyone stop," Jake whispered. "There's something here." Nicole crept forward, moving silently through the rocks. She had learned to walk without making noise during her years as a park ranger. The others followed her, trying to copy her careful movements. They found it behind a large boulder. It looked like a metal box about the size of a backpack, covered with strange symbols and blinking lights. A thin antenna stuck out from the top, pointed directly at New Haven. "It's watching us," Pete whispered. "This thing has been watching us for who knows how long." Jake studied the device carefully. It was clearly alien technology, far more advanced than anything the colonists had. But it was also small and fragile looking. "Can we disable it without alerting them?" Amy knelt down next to the device and pulled out her tools. "I can try, but if I mess up, they'll know we found it." "Do it," Jake said. "We need to learn how their technology works." Amy worked carefully, opening panels and studying the alien. Circuits inside. Her hands moved with practiced skill as she traced wires and identified components. After 20 minutes, she smiled and pulled out a small crystal. "This is their power source," she said. "Without it, the device is dead." The alien observation post went dark. Jake felt a small moment of victory. They had struck their first blow against the Kethver. "Look for more," Jake told his team. "If there's one, there are probably others." They found 3 more observation posts over the next few hours. Each one was disabled and its power source removed. Amy studied each device, learning more about alien technology with every discovery. As the afternoon wore on, Jake's communication device crackled to life. It was Captain Rodriguez calling from the colony. "Jake, we have a problem. Dr. Carter has detected movement in the forest to the south." "Something big is coming our way." Jake looked at his team. They were tired from climbing through the rocky hills, but they were also excited by their success. They had proven that humans could fight back against advanced alien technology. "We're coming back," Jake said into the device. "Tell Danny to get everyone ready. This might be our first real test." They ran down the hillside toward New Haven. Jake could see smoke rising from the colony in the distance. People were building barriers and preparing defensive positions. The peaceful settlement was transforming into a fortress. As they approached the colony, Jake saw Danny Brooks directing a group of colonists in combat training. Former soldiers and police officers were teaching others how to fight with improvised weapons. Even elderly colonists were learning to defend themselves. "What did you find?" Captain Rodriguez asked when Jake's team arrived. 4 observation posts," Jake reported, all disabled. "Amy learned a lot about their technology, but more importantly, we proved something today." "We can hurt them," the captain smiled grimly. "Good, because they're coming. Our sensors detected a scout ship landing about 5 miles south of here. Dr. Carter thinks it's a small advance party, maybe 4 or 5 aliens." Jake felt his heart racing. After 3 years of peace, they were about to face their first real battle. But he also felt something else, excitement. The hunt was about to begin, and this time the humans were going to be ready. "What are your orders?" Danny Brooks asked. Captain Rodriguez looked at the faces around her. These were good people who had survived against impossible odds. They had learned to live on a harsh alien world using nothing but their wits and determination. Now they would learn to fight. "We show them what humans can do," she said. "We show them that we're not prey. We're predators." The alien scout ship landed at sunset, crushing trees and burning grass with its landing thrusters. Jake watched from a hidden position on a ridge above the landing site. Through his binoculars, he could see the ship's metal hull glowing red. Hot from entry into the atmosphere. Amy Foster worked beside him, her fingers flying over the alien communication device she had built from parts taken from the observation posts. Strange sounds came from the device as it picked up alien radio signals. The translation program struggled to make sense of the voices. "I'm getting something," Amy whispered. "They're talking about the colony. They're calling us specimens and protein units." Jake felt anger burn in his chest. These aliens saw humans as nothing more than food. They had been watching the colony for 3 years, waiting for the population to grow large enough for a good harvest. The ship's door opened, with a hiss of escaping air. 5 figures emerged, each one tall and thin with gray skin and long arms. They wore dark armor that seemed to bend light around it, making them hard to see clearly. Each alien carried a weapon that looked like a rifle but glowed with blue energy. "Kethver. Hunting party," Amy said, reading from her device. "They're doing a final survey before the main harvest fleet arrives." Jake spoke into his communication device. "Danny, they're moving toward the colony. 5 of them, armed with energy weapons. They're using some kind of camouflage technology." Danny Brooks' voice crackled back through the static. "Copy that. We're ready for them." The aliens moved through the forest with confident steps. They walked in single file, following a path that would take them straight to New Haven. Jake could See, they were skilled hunters, but they moved like predators who had never faced dangerous prey. They're not expecting a fight, Jake said to Amy. Look how they walk. They think we're helpless. Amy nodded, still monitoring the alien communications. They're talking about capture methods. They want to take some humans alive for study. The rest will be killed for food. Jake felt his grandfather's spear in his hand. The old weapon had been passed down through 3 generations of his family. It had killed deer and elk on Earth and strange creatures on this alien world. Tonight, it would taste alien blood. Time to go, Jake said. Stay behind me and keep that communication device working. I want to know what they're saying. They moved down the ridge, following paths that Jake had walked hundreds of times. He knew every rock and tree in these hills. The aliens might have advanced technology, but they were walking into his territory now. Jake reached the first ambush position where Nicole Adams waited with 3 other colonists. She had positioned her people among the rocks where they could see the alien patrol route. Each person carried a simple weapon, spears, crossbows, and knives made from salvaged metal. They're coming, Jake whispered. Remember, wait for my signal. Aim for the leader first. The aliens appeared through the trees, moving in their single-file formation. Their camouflage technology made them shimmer like heat waves, but Jake could still track their movement. The leader was slightly larger than the others, with more decorations on his armor. Jake waited until the aliens were in the middle of the kill zone. Then he stood up and threw his grandfather's spear with all his strength. The weapon flew true, punching through the leader's armor and dropping him to the ground. The other colonists attacked immediately. Crossbow bolts flew from the rocks, followed by more spears and thrown knives. 2 more aliens fell before they could react. The remaining 2 raised their energy weapons and fired blue beams that burned holes through rocks and trees, but the humans were already moving. Nicole had taught them to shoot and move, never staying in one place long enough to become targets. They flowed through the rocks like water, always attacking from a new direction. Jake pulled his spear from the dead alien leader and saw something that made his blood run cold. The alien was wearing a communication device similar to Amy's scanner. It was beeping rapidly, sending out an emergency signal. They're calling for help, Jake shouted. We need to finish this fast. The battle was over in minutes. The remaining aliens fell to human weapons, their advanced technology useless against enemies who fought like wild animals. Jake stood over the bodies, breathing hard and covered in alien blood. Check their equipment, he told his team. Take everything useful. Amy ran up with her communication device. Jake, you need to hear this. The main alien fleet is coming early. They detected the emergency signal from the scout team. Jake listened to the translated alien voices. The Kethver were angry and confused. They had expected to find their scout team completing a routine survey. Instead, they found dead bodies and evidence of organized resistance. How long do we have? Jake asked. 2 days, maybe less, Amy said. But there's something else. I'm picking up communications from other ships. This isn't just about our colony anymore. Jake felt his stomach drop. What do you mean? Amy's face was pale in the moonlight. They're talking about Earth. They're calling it a prime hunting ground. They want to harvest millions of humans. The weight of responsibility crashed down on Jake's shoulders. The colony wasn't just fighting for their own survival anymore. They were fighting for the entire human race. We need to get this information to Captain Rodriguez, Jake said. We need to move fast. The aliens will send more scouts when this team doesn't report back. They gathered the alien weapons and equipment, loading everything they could carry. Jake strapped an energy rifle to his back alongside his grandfather's spear. The combination of old and new weapons felt right somehow. As they headed back toward New Haven, Amy continued monitoring alien communications. They're confused, she reported. They keep saying that humans are supposed to be primitive and helpless. They can't understand how we killed their scouts. Jake smiled grimly. Good, let them stay confused. The more they underestimate us, the better our chances. They reached the colony to find it transformed into a fortress. Danny Brooks had organized the defenses well. Barriers made from ship parts and local materials surrounded the settlement. Armed colonists patrolled the perimeter, carrying weapons made from salvaged materials. Dr. Ben Carter met them at the gate. "We detected the battle," he said. "Energy weapon discharges and then silence. I was worried we'd lost you." "We won," Jake said. "But we have bigger problems now." They went straight to the command center where Captain Rodriguez waited with the colony's leaders. Jake spread the captured alien equipment on the table and told them what Amy had discovered. "Earth is their target," he said. "They're planning to harvest millions of people. We're just the appetizer." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Their families and friends back on Earth were in danger. The entire human race was about to become prey for alien hunters. "We have to warn them," said Dr. Carter. "Earth needs to know what's coming." Captain Rodriguez studied the alien equipment. "Can we use their communication system to send a message?" Amy nodded. "I think so. But we'd need to boost the signal somehow. And we'd need to stay alive long enough to send it." Jake picked up his grandfather's spear and hefted it in his hands. The weapon felt familiar and comforting, a reminder of human strength and determination. "Then we make our stand here. We hold them off long enough to get the message out? Against an entire alien fleet?" Danny Brooks asked. Jake looked around the room at the faces of the colony's leaders. These were the people who had kept 847 humans alive on an alien world for 3 years. They had faced impossible odds before and survived. "We're not the same people who crashed here 3 years ago," Jake said. "We've learned to hunt, to fight, to survive. And now we're going to teach these aliens what happens when they try to hunt humans." Outside, the alien fleet was coming. But inside the command center, something had changed. The humans were no longer prey, waiting to be harvested. They were predators preparing for war. The alien ships arrived at dawn, filling the sky with dark shapes that blocked out the morning sun. Jake counted 15 vessels of different sizes circling above New Haven like vultures waiting for death. The largest ship was 3 times the size of the transport that had brought the colonists to this world. Sam Walsh worked frantically in his workshop, surrounded by pieces of alien technology captured from the dead scouts. Sparks flew from his welding torch as he tried to reverse engineer the enemy's cloaking devices. His hands shook from exhaustion and too much coffee, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "I think I've got it," Sam said, holding up a small device that flickered in and out of view. "The cloaking field isn't perfect, but it should hide 1 or 2 people for a short time." Jake tested the device, watching his hand disappear and reappear. It felt strange to be invisible, like becoming a ghost. "How many can you make?" "Maybe 6 or 7 with the parts we have," Sam replied. "But they won't last long. The power cells are almost dead." Dr. Ben Carter looked up from his computer where he had been working on the alien communication virus. His eyes were red from staring at screens for hours. "I've found a weakness in their network protocol. If we can get close enough to upload this virus, it will spread through their entire fleet." Jake studied the tactical map on the wall. The alien ships were positioned in a defensive formation around the colony, but they were keeping their distance. After losing the scout team, the Kethver had become more careful. "They're afraid of us now," Danny Brooks said. He stood at the window, watching the alien ships through binoculars. "They know we can fight back." Captain Rodriguez entered the command center carrying a cup of coffee and looking tired. She had been up all night coordinating the colony's defenses. "Status report," she said. "The cloaking devices are almost ready," Jake reported. "Dr. Carter has the virus prepared. We just need to get close enough to one of their ships to upload it." "That's suicide," the captain said. "Those ships are armed with weapons that can level this entire colony." Amy Foster looked up from her communication monitoring station. "Maybe not. I've been listening to their tactical communications. They're arguing about tactics. Some want to attack immediately, others want to wait for reinforcements." "What kind of reinforcements?" Jake asked. Amy's face was grim. "The main harvesting fleet." Hundreds of ships headed for Earth. They want to use our colony as a training exercise for their hunting troops. The weight of that news settled over the room. Earth was defenseless against an alien invasion. The people back home had no idea what was coming. If the colonists failed here, billions of humans would die. We need to capture one of their communication ships, Captain Rodriguez said. It's the only way to warn Earth and send them the virus. Jake picked up his grandfather's spear and strapped on one of Sam's cloaking devices. Then that's what we do. Give me the best fighters we have and the equipment we need. I'm coming with you, Amy said. You'll need someone who understands their technology. So am I, added Nicole Adams. You'll need a tracker, Pete Johnson stepped forward. And you'll need someone who knows explosives. Within an hour, Jake had assembled a team of 12 colonists. Each person carried a cloaking device, alien weapons captured from the scouts, and enough explosives to damage a small ship. They moved out of the colony under cover of darkness, heading for the landing site where the smallest alien vessel waited. The forest was different now. Alien searchlights swept through the trees, and mechanical sounds echoed from hidden positions. The HFY had deployed sensors and automated defenses throughout the area around their landing zone. Motion detectors, Nicole whispered, pointing to a device attached to a tree. They're watching for movement. Jake activated his cloaking device and felt the strange sensation of becoming invisible. The others did the same, flickering out of sight like ghosts. They moved carefully through the forest. Avoiding the alien sensors and patrols, the alien ship sat in a clearing surrounded by force field generators. It was smaller than the others, built for speed rather than firepower. Jake could see HFY guards patrolling around the ship, their energy weapons glowing in the darkness. That's our target, Amy whispered through the communication device. It's a command ship. All their tactical information will be stored in its computers. Jake counted 8 guards outside the ship. More would be inside, along with the ship's crew. It would be a difficult fight, but they had advantages the aliens didn't expect. They knew the terrain, they could move invisibly, and they were fighting for their species' survival. Pete, can you disable the force field generators? Jake asked. Pete studied the alien equipment through his binoculars. Give me 5 minutes with those power cables. But once I cut them, they'll know we're here. That's okay, Jake said. We want them to know we're here. Nicole, take your team around to the far side of the ship. When I give the signal, we hit them from both directions. The team split up, moving through the forest like shadows. Jake crept toward the nearest guard, his grandfather's spear ready in his hands. The alien stood with its back to him, scanning the tree line for threats it couldn't see. Jake struck without warning, driving the spear through the guard's armor. The alien fell silently, its weapon clattering to the ground. Jake picked up the energy rifle and continued toward the ship. Pete reached the force field generators and began cutting power cables with a small plasma torch. Sparks flew as he worked, and Jake knew they only had seconds before the aliens noticed. The force field flickered and died. Pete's voice came through the communication device. Field is down. Go, go, go. Jake and his team attacked from 2 sides, their cloaking devices making them nearly invisible in the darkness. Energy weapons fired in all directions as the aliens tried to fight enemies they couldn't see. The battle was fierce but brief. Human determination and surprise tactics overcame alien technology. Jake fought his way into the ship, his spear and captured rifle working together. The narrow corridors were filled with smoke and the smell of burned metal. Alien voices shouted in panic as invisible attackers struck from every direction. Amy reached the ship's computer center first, her fingers flying over the alien controls. I'm uploading the virus now, she said. 30 seconds. A HFY officer appeared in the doorway, firing his energy weapon wildly. Jake threw his spear, and the alien fell backward. The old weapon had killed another enemy, just as it had killed deer and elk on Earth. Upload complete, Amy announced. The virus is spreading through their network now. Jake could hear alien voices screaming through the communication systems as the virus infected ship after ship. Their tactical coordination was falling apart as computers failed and communication systems went down. "Time to go," Jake said. "This place is about to become very dangerous." They ran from the ship as alien reinforcements arrived. Energy weapons fired at shadows as the Kethver tried to stop enemies they couldn't see. The humans melted away into the forest, their cloaking devices hiding them from pursuit. Behind them, the alien fleet was in chaos. Ships collided as their navigation systems failed. Communications went silent as the virus spread through their networks. The organized hunting force was becoming a confused mob. Jake's team reached the ridge overlooking the battle and watched the alien ships struggling to maintain formation. Some were already retreating, their systems too damaged to continue fighting. "We did it," Amy said, monitoring the alien communications. "The virus has infected their entire fleet. They're calling for a full retreat." But Jake was looking at something else. High above the planet, new ships were appearing. The main harvesting fleet had arrived, and it was huge. Hundreds of vessels filled the sky, so many that they blocked out the stars. "The real battle is just beginning," Jake said, gripping his grandfather's spear. The old weapon felt warm in his hands, ready for another fight. Earth was still in danger, but now the humans had proven something important. They were no longer prey. They were predators, and they were ready to hunt. The harvesting fleet filled the sky like a dark storm cloud. Jake counted over 300 ships of different sizes, from small fighters to massive vessels that could carry thousands of prisoners. The lead ship was so large it cast a shadow. Over the entire colony of New Haven, Captain Rodriguez stood in the command center, staring at the tactical display with grim determination. The virus had damaged the first alien fleet, but this new force was much larger and better prepared. Their communication systems were different, protected against the computer virus that had saved the colony before. "They learned from our attack," Dr. Ben Carter said, studying the alien ship formations. "These ships have better defenses and backup systems. The virus won't work on them." Jake entered the command center carrying his grandfather's spear and a captured alien energy rifle. His clothes were torn and dirty from the battle at the alien ship, but his eyes burned with fierce determination. "Then we find another way to hurt them." Amy Foster looked up from her monitoring station, her face pale with fear. "Jake, they're not just here for us anymore. I'm picking up communications about Earth. They've already sent advanced scouts to our home planet." The news hit everyone like a physical blow. While they had been fighting for survival on this alien world, Earth was being prepared for invasion. Billions of people back home had no idea that alien hunters were coming for them. "How long before the main attack on Earth?" Captain Rodriguez asked. 6 days, Amy replied. "They want to finish here first, then use our colony as a staging area for the assault on Earth." Jake felt anger burning in his chest. These aliens had watched his people for 3 years, planning to harvest them like cattle. Now they wanted to do the same thing to everyone he had ever known back on Earth, his family, his friends, millions of innocent people who would never see the aliens coming. "We need to capture their main communication ship," Jake said. "It's the only way to warn Earth about what's coming." Sam Walsh shook his head. "That ship is huge, Jake. It probably has a crew of thousands, and it's protected by the entire fleet." "Then we don't attack the ship," Jake said, studying the tactical display. "We attack the fleet." Everyone stared at him. The idea seemed impossible. 847 colonists against hundreds of alien warships. It was suicide. "Hear me out," Jake continued. "They think we're primitive. They think we're helpless prey that got lucky a few times. They don't understand what humans can do when we're fighting for our families." Danny Brooks stepped forward. "What do you have in mind?" Jake pointed to the tactical display. "They're using the same hunting formation they probably use on every world. A main command ship in the center, surrounded by rings of smaller vessels. It's designed to trap prey, not to fight other predators." Nicole Adams studied the formation with her tracker's eyes. "He's right. They're positioned to contain and capture, not to defend against attack." If we hit them from multiple directions at once, we could break their formation. With what weapons? Sam asked. We have a few captured alien rifles and some improvised explosives. They have energy cannons that can level mountains. Jake picked up his grandfather's spear and hefted it in his hands. We use what we've always used. We use our brains, we use the terrain, and we use their arrogance against them. Captain Rodriguez looked around the room at her officers. These were the people who had kept the colony alive for 3 years against impossible odds. They had learned to adapt, to survive, and to fight. What's the plan? We evacuate the colony, Jake said. Make them think we're running scared. Then we hit their landing parties when they come down to hunt us. We take their ships, their weapons, and their equipment. We turn their own technology against them, Amy nodded slowly. The communication ship will have to come down to coordinate the ground assault. That's when we strike. It's still suicide, Sam said. Even if we capture a few ships, we can't fight? Their entire fleet. We don't have to fight them all, Jake replied. We just have to hold them long enough to get a warning to Earth, and to upload something special into their communication network. Dr. Carter raised an eyebrow. What kind of something special? Jake smiled grimly. Everything we've learned about fighting them. Their weaknesses, their tactics, their technology. We turn every human in the galaxy into a predator. The evacuation of New Haven began immediately. Colonists loaded essential supplies onto vehicles and headed into the wilderness. To the aliens watching from above, it looked like the humans were running in panic. In reality, they were moving to prepared positions throughout the forest and hills. Jake led a team of 50 fighters to the highest ridge overlooking the valley. They carried every weapon the colony could spare from energy. Rifles to crossbows to simple spears. Hidden among the rocks, they had a clear view of the alien landing sites. The first alien ships landed at noon, crushing trees and burning grass with their engines. Hundreds of HFY hunters poured out, carrying advanced weapons and wearing armor that made them nearly invisible. They moved through the forest in organized groups, hunting for the scattered colonists. They're confident, Nicole observed, watching the aliens through binoculars. They think this is going to be easy. Jake gripped his grandfather's spear tighter. Let them think that. The more confident they are, the more mistakes they'll make. The aliens spent hours searching the empty colony, finding nothing but abandoned buildings and cold fires. Their frustration was obvious as they spread out into the wilderness, following false trails that led nowhere. Now, Jake whispered into his communication device. The attack came from everywhere at once. Hidden colonists struck from caves, trees, and rock formations. Alien hunters found themselves surrounded by enemies they couldn't see until it was too late. Energy weapons fired wildly as the HFY tried to fight shadows. Jake led his team down from the ridge, moving like wolves through the forest. They hit isolated alien groups, taking weapons and equipment before melting back into the wilderness. The aliens' advanced technology became a liability in the thick forest where human knowledge of the terrain gave them every advantage. Pete Johnson's explosives destroyed 3 alien ships before their crews could take off. Sam Walsh led a team that captured an enemy communication post, giving Amy access to their tactical frequencies. The organized alien hunt was becoming a chaotic battle against an enemy that refused to fight fair. The main communication ship landed in the center of the valley, its massive bulk crushing everything beneath it. Jake could see it through the trees, protected by energy shields and surrounded by guards. Getting inside would be nearly impossible. There, Amy said, pointing to a maintenance hatch on the ship's underside. If we can reach that opening, I can hack into their main computer? Jake looked at the distance they would have to cross. Open ground with no cover, surrounded by alien guards with energy weapons. It was a suicide run, but it was their only chance to warn Earth. Cover me, Jake said, gripping his spear and rifle. I'm going in. We're all going in, Danny Brooks said. The old sergeant had gathered 20 volunteers, all armed with captured alien weapons. Nobody gets left behind. They ran across the open ground like charging cavalry, screaming battle cries that echoed through the valley. Energy beams flashed around them as alien guards fired desperately. Half the team fell before they reached the ship, but the survivors kept running. Jake threw his grandfather's spear with all his strength, taking down the guard at the maintenance hatch. The old weapon had served his family well, and now it was helping to save the human race. He pulled out his energy rifle and fought his way into the ship. The corridors were filled with smoke and chaos as humans and aliens battled in close quarters. Jake fought like his ancestors had fought, using every dirty trick he had learned in 3 years of survival on an alien world. Amy reached the computer center and began uploading their data to the communication network. Information about alien tactics, technology, and weaknesses flowed into the system along with detailed warnings about the coming invasion of Earth. "Upload complete," she shouted over the sound of battle. "Earth knows what's coming, and so does every human colony in the galaxy." Jake felt a moment of satisfaction as alien voices screamed through the communication system. The Kethver fleet was in chaos as their own network turned against them. Spreading human knowledge to every corner of the galaxy, the aliens retreated. Their hunting expedition turned into a nightmare. Their prey had become predators, and the hunters had become the hunted. The age of humans as victims was over. Jake sat by a fire that night, cooking alien meat on his grandfather's spear. The weapon was stained with enemy blood, but it still worked perfectly. Around him, the colony was rebuilding, stronger and deadlier than before. In the sky above, human ships were arriving. Earth had received the warning and was sending help. But more importantly, humans across the galaxy were learning to fight back. The prey had become predators, and the galaxy would never be the same.